There's a lot of things that reading does for someone. It teaches them a story. It teaches them a principle. It gives them ideas, thoughts, maybe directs them in one direction or another. One thing that I love about reading is that you get to learn from other people's successes or failures. Something that I wasn't really good at when I was younger, but I'm now starting to enjoy more and more, is actually reading about other people's successes and failures, and reading just in general. When I was younger, my parents always told me, readers are leaders. I wasn't a reader, and so I took that I wasn't a leader. But as I have enjoyed and got to love and been exposed to reading, I love it. I absolutely love it. There's so many neat things that come from it. Some of the things that we get to learn, we can apply, or we can choose to just pass off as good ideas. Jim Collins, one of my favorite authors, he writes a lot of business books. One of the books that we're going to read some excerpts out of today comes from Built to Last. Now, Jim Collins, something that he does is he goes into businesses, and in the books that he writes, he finds out what makes businesses different. What makes someone in this business, or what makes this business thrive over maybe another one. And in this book, Built to Last, we get to go back to the early 1900s, where there were great concepts, great principles, and a man that was meant to establish some principles early on about business. This is about Henry Ford and the Model T. I'm going to read a couple of excerpts from this book. Now, before I do, I hope that you're taking out a pen and paper, or we do live in the electronic age. So get out your iPad, get your fingers all warmed up to type, okay? And take some notes. Pay attention. And I hope that you allow some of these ideas and concepts that we're going to share with you over the summer, that you let it soak in and let it change. Because if you want to become something better, if you want to become something different, if you want to become more enhanced, if you want to enrich your life, if you want to enjoy things more, I promise we're going to share some things with you that will do exactly that. From the book, Built to Last, Jim Collins says this. In the early 1980s, the Ford Motor Company found itself reeling, bleeding red ink from wounds inflicted during the repeated thrashings it took from Japanese competitors. Ford suffered $3.3 billion in net losses in 3 years. Naturally, the Ford team threw itself into a frenzy of emergency measures to stop the bleeding and keep the company breathing. It also did something else, something unusual for a team facing such a tremendous crisis. It paused to clarify its guiding principles. The objective was to create a proclamation that clearly stated what the Ford Motor Company stood for. At times, the discussions sounded more like a college class in philosophy than a business meeting. There was a great deal of talk about the sequence of the 3 Ps: people, products, and profits. It was decided that people should absolutely come first, products second, and profits third. We found evidence that the Ford's team's deliberations about the 3 Ps reached back in time to reawaken the ideology espoused by Henry Ford in the early days of the company. The 1980s turnaround team wasn't inventing completely new ideals, but was, in part, breathing life back into ones that had long lain dormant. In describing the relationship between the 3 Ps in the early days of the company, Henry Ford commented in 1916, "I don't believe we should make such an awful profit on our cars. A reasonable profit is right, but not too much. I hold that it is better to sell a large number of cars at a reasonably small profit. I hold this because it enables a larger number of people to buy and enjoy the use of a car, and because it gives a larger number of men employment at good wages. These are 2 aims I have in life." Idealistic prattle? Cynical pronouncements to pacify the public? Perhaps. But keep in mind that Ford transformed the American way of life for 15 million families with the affordable Model T.
the people's car. In large part by reducing prices by 58% from 1908 to 1916, at the time, Ford had more orders than it could fill and could have raised prices. Mr. Ford kept lowering them anyway, even in the face of a shareholder lawsuit against the practice. And, during the same era, he boldly introduced the $5 workday for workers, which, at roughly twice the standard industry rate, shocked and outraged the industrial world.
After listening to that, did you find out the 3 Ps? Here they are. I'm going to pull them up right here. Question number 2. What did Henry Ford do to demonstrate his actual commitment to the ideals of the 3 Ps? First, Henry Ford lowered the Model T. Are you kidding me? Why would you do this? Now the question is would you, in his situation, have lowered the price of the Model T? Henry Ford lowered the Model T price by 58%. This was the most popular car in America. It was called the People's Car. He lowered it by 58%. And because of that, he even got sued by his shareholders. How cool is that? He got sued by his shareholders because he was unwilling to actually raise the price. That, in my mind, is a bad, bad dog. He's cool. But one thing that's important is he held to his ideals and he didn't raise the price, regardless of whatever else was happening around him. Number 2, Henry Ford was willing to pay $5 to his workers for a day, which was twice the going average. He took care of people. Unfortunately, when media gets a hold of things, whether they're good or bad, they want to expose it. And when Henry Ford introduced the $5 day to his employees and to the rest of America, this is what they said.
The Wall Street Journal accused Henry Ford of economic blunders, if not crimes, which would soon return to plague him in the industry he represents, as well as organized society. In a naive wish for social improvement, declared the newspapers, Ford had injected spiritual principles into a field where they do not belong. A heinous crime, and captains of industry lined up to condemn the most foolish thing ever attempted in the industrial world.
So I want to ask you, what stands out from that excerpt that we just read? Can give you a minute to think about it. Something that we've learned in history is that one of the reasons why a lot of businesses fail is because they don't understand the principles. They put profit ahead of those other things. Henry Ford got it. Henry Ford got it. But businesses fail because they put profit first. When we do this, what happens is selfishness takes over. Greed takes over. We're not in control anymore because we're focused on one thing. How can we do this cheaper? How can we take away from here to make it less? Therefore, we get more and more and more. And where does it stop? One of the reasons why Henry Ford dominated the automotive industry was because he understood the right principle to this concept. I want to read one more quote from Zig Ziglar. I'm going to read it twice, so I want you to write it down. This is important, and I think that you're going to like what it says. You will get all you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want. You will get all you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want. I want you to write that down. How can you internalize that quote from Zig Ziglar? What can you take away from that to make yourself change? And in this case, a good change, a better you. Who wouldn't want that? This is a very, very powerful principle. Most of us probably understand it. Maybe we've even taught it to other people. We understand the ideal, but we have a very, very hard time applying it in our lives. It's hard for us to put other people in front. It's hard for us to put other people in front. I want you to think for a minute, and I want you to line out, let's see, here we go. Line out your notebook, okay? I want you to take a section of your notebook, and I want you to write down a couple of things that come to your mind. Is there times in your life that you've seen recently where you've put you first? The paradox of this ideal is that when people put themselves first, they limit their opportunities. I'm going to say that one more time. When people put themselves first, they limit their opportunity. And they have a very hard time developing relationships, especially meaningful relationships. Now, I want you to ask yourself this question: how does this principle apply to everyday life? How does it apply? I also want to point out that this principle applies everywhere. 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 It applies with your spouse. It applies in your business, professionally. It applies with your friends and your family. Please remember this. When you put others first, you expand. When you go first, you limit. So what? What does this have to do with summer sales? You might ask yourself, what does this have to do with summer sales? This concept is what we want to teach today. Win-win or no deal. This is a principle that I believe in that's true. And I want to tell you how it applies to summer sales. There are a lot of companies out there that do summer sales, and they teach their reps different tactics or techniques that basically goes along the concept of do whatever you have to do to get the sale. Do whatever you have to do to get the sale. And by following those techniques or tactics, you put yourself first. You put yourself first. Do you remember what I said? When you put yourself first, you limit your opportunities. When you understand this principle and you apply this win-win or no deal principle, what you do use it, you expand yourself. You open yourself up. You look for opportunities to help other people. You identify those things, and when you're willing to do so, you will find greater success in business. And when you go out there today, tomorrow, or next week, and you genuinely want to help other people, they will see that from you. They will trust you. That trust will lead to success and more opportunities, and best of all, a clear conscience. You will be able to sleep at night feeling good about what you did. Let me ask you this question. Can you think of someone in your life that figured out this concept, that put others' interests and needs above their own, and how that helped them? So the question that we got to ask ourselves is, how can we apply this principle into our lives? I came across a story that I want to share with you today about a couple of athletes. I love this story, and it demonstrates this principle, the win-win or no deal, to the T. Central Washington and Western Oregon came together on a Saturday when there wasn't very many people in attendance, maybe 100 people at best. Both of these aren't named programs. Nobody even really knows who they are. I love to watch sports, probably not necessarily softball, but I came across this story and I thought it was really, really cool. A player from Western Oregon, senior Sarah Tikowski, she got up. She's 5'2", maybe $140, and she had never ever hit a home run in her life in college sports. She got up. The first pitch was a strike. She swung hard, but she didn't get it. The second pitch, she felt coming in, and she reached for it, and she pulled it all the way out of the park. With the crowd going wild, there was 2 runners on second and third. They came in. She was so excited about it that when she rounded first, she forgot to touch the plate. Now in sports, if you forget to touch the plate, you have to go back and touch the plate. So as she turned to go back to the plate, she twisted her knee enough. No, she actually tore her knee ligament, and she fell down and collapsed. Now, if you can imagine, the whole crowd went silent. She was in pain, holding her knee, didn't know exactly what to do. And this is where the choice came. What would you do in this situation? Now, in college sports, if a player comes out to pinch run for her, they wouldn't count her run. It would be an automatic out. They would bring the player back on base, and she wouldn't be able to register that as a home run. If one of their players helped her, it would be an out. And so what happens? Something that was really neat that happened from the other team, from a player named Mallory Holtman and Liz Wallace, is from the central team, they came out, put their mitts down, picked her up, and walked her around the bases. To me, that is a pure sign of putting people first. They wanted her to have her first home run in her college career, and it happened to be her only home run. So they walked her around the bases. She touched the bases with her feet. She didn't get an out. She counted it as a home run. So just like these 2 people, when they had the game on the line and they ended up losing that game, but they saw the bigger picture. They got more out of it because they understood the principle. I hope that each of you have written down some notes of how you can internalize this, how you can apply it today, tomorrow, next week, next year. What do you need to do in your personal life, your professional life, to put people first? Because I promise you that when you live by this principle and you look for the win-win, when you understand people's needs and you genuinely want to help them, great things will come. Opportunities, many, many doors will come to you. Please incorporate these in your life, and by so doing, you will be able to enrich your life. You will understand what green grass really means. Thank you.